douchebags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it is time for my review of the self-titled debut album from Elohim. Elohim is very much a multi-talented artist. She's a music producer in addition to being a vocalist, a songwriter, and a live performer, and she excels in really all categories. I first found out about Elohim back in the summer of 2016 when Eden had recommended that I check out her self-titled EP that had released that year. I trusted in Johnny's taste, and needless to say, I was very impressed with the EP. Though I didn't think the project was absolutely astounding in every possible aspect. Regardless, I thought there were a lot of really great and inventive ideas kind of pushing their way through that indie pop sound, in addition to Elohim having some really deep cutting and personal lyrics. Like I said, I like that EP a lot. I think it earned a 7.5 when I initially reviewed it, although it wasn't until I caught her live actually opening for Eden a couple months later that I really started to go crazy for her music. Elohim's live shows are very thought out and performance-driven, very cerebral, while simultaneously being very dazzling and surreal. I've seen her live numerous times now, and every single time she manages to blow me away by kind of encapturing my brain in a way no other artist has been able to. That magical feeling of sorts definitely factored into me giving Elohim's debut EP my #1 spot in my top 10 EPs of 2016 video, and why in said video I referred to her as the future of music, a statement that I still kind of hold to even today. If you get the chance to see Elohim live, absolutely do not miss her. Moving back to the music though, I was absolutely ecstatic to find out that Elohim was putting out a full-length album this year. Since actually late 2016, Elohim has been putting out single after single, and I've always thought, you know, these songs deserve a home. In addition to that, she has continued to play unreleased music from this album at almost every show I've seen her at, getting me all the more hyped for it and how it would turn out. So without any more stalling, let's get into my thoughts about this album. First of all, I think it's important to mention that in terms of song quality and bringing new, fresh ideas to the table, this album is a significant improvement over Elohim's first EP. There were definitely a great number of memorable moments that felt really unique to Elohim as an artist on this album. For example, the not-so-subtle sex moans on The Wave, there's the singing over the text-to-speech voice on Skinny Legs that was really cool, the use of the mariachi band and the violins on Hallucinating, the kind of tossing back and forth of the lyrics between Elohim and Yoshi Flower on Panic Attacks, the list goes on. And though I don't think there was a lyrical moment on this album that impacted me as much as Xanax from Elohim's EP, I think this album still lyrically was really solid too. I think Elohim did a really good job of kind of trying to capture and visualize her philosophy on tracks like FYM and Not Just Your Mama. Additionally, I also think Elohim did a really good job of kind of preserving that persona that she set in place with her debut EP, that kind of girl with mental illnesses that can still be fun and sexy kind of persona. Although I also think it's very important to note that Elohim keeps these two sides of her persona very separate and focuses on them in separate songs rather than kind of blending them together. Elohim definitely isn't trying to glorify drug use or mental illness. In fact, she's kind of trying to do the opposite. Moving forward, I think it best to probably go through this album track by track so I don't confuse myself. Unlike the Elohim EP, which was kicked off with a really fun and dancey Sensations, this album starts off on a much darker tone with the intro Why Am I Like This. The song features some very saddening string arrangements as well as some really intimate vocal sampling from Elohim. I think she does a fantastic job of really capturing the essence of like a 3 a.m. depression just crying out in the middle of the night. The Wave is a little bit more of a fun, dancey pop song. It was actually one of my favorite singles that came out prior to this album's release. Like I said, really like the sex noises during the drop, and the whole vibe of the song kind of gives me like an Elohim EP meets future bass kind of sound. I really like those collisions of sounds. I've talked at length about seemingly every dance music producer pursuing dancehall right now. I'm just not really crazy about it, but this is a really well-made song, and it's a collaboration that I think kind of had to happen considering Weathen kind of gave Elohim a chance in the spotlight when he remixed her song Sensations. Skinny Legs is a song that I've enjoyed a lot even before it came out as a single. I think the first time I saw Elohim do a headline set, this was the song she opened up with, and it absolutely blew my mind when I saw it. saw her perform it then. FYM is a song that I'd probably say I enjoy a little bit more in the context of Elohim's live sets than on this album. I think it's a kind of fun and catchy dance song. Beyond its lyrics, which, like I've said, does a really good job of setting up Elohim's philosophy on this album, I really don't think this song has a ton to offer. It has a really simple melody during the chorus, and it gets just a little bit redundant, and like I said, this makes for a really fun moment in her live sets, but in the context of this album, I don't really think it does that much. Hallucinating is just a fantastic song in all regards. God, if you haven't listened to it yet, I would definitely suggest you go check it out, although it is really weird to hear this song coming back on this album, considering how old it is compared to most of the singles that are on this. The Universe Is Yours was probably my least favorite track on this album, at least my first couple runs through it. I don't really dislike it as much as I did initially. I think its lyrics are still kind of mildly trashy, although I get kind of why they're there, and then the overall sound of it doesn't really stretch too far past the current wave of alt R&B, but it's a decent song, it's well crafted, and it's got a place on this album. I'm not going to talk that in depth about any of the interludes on this album, especially not Enemies. I really don't think that one had a ton to offer. Silence Is Cool is probably my favorite interlude on this album, and if you've listened to it, you'll kind of know why. I think it's got a lot of power and good message to it. And I also think Water Baby is a decent interlude too. I think it leads into Insecure really nicely. And then moving on, I've already talked a little bit about Panic Attacks. I like the song for what it is, and I also think it's very important that this particular collaboration happened, considering Yoshi Flower is Elohim's best friend, and I think, judging by the lyrics, I'm pretty sure they're roommates as well. I guess what I'm trying to get at in saying that is that it's really cool that Elohim is collaborating specifically with the people that she holds so near and dear to her heart on this album, rather than a bunch of people that some corporation thinks will sound good with her style. This song also features some of my favorite lines on the entire album. I especially love that line where Elohim talks about taking pills and feeling alright with the exception of the complete numbness and thoughts of suicide. Half Love is another song in the album that I enjoy. It's got a really nice, triumphant chord progression that I think works really well with it, and then the hook is really infectious too, and I like the use of the saxophone in there as well. It kind of gives me a little bit of a Mr. Saxo beat vibe. I Want You is just an absolute banger, and I'll kind of leave it at that. It was the one track from the album that we decided to feature on Gargantua Music. I think it's definitely the highlight out of the tracks that weren't previously released as a single. Probably one of the best blends of electropop and future bass I've ever seen. It's really good. Not Just Your Mama, it's alright. I'd probably put it on a similar tier to The Universe Is Yours. I don't think it does anything that particularly exciting. It does have a place on the album though, and it does do a good job kind of putting in place Elohim's philosophies that she has. The album closes off with the song Insecure, which I think does an excellent job kind of playing that part. It wraps the album up really nicely by further examining those insecurities that Elohim introduced to us in the intro of the album, and kind of does a good job answering the question, why am I like this, when she says, maybe it's all in my head. There's no logical reason for it, it's mental illness, and by the end of the album it seems like Elohim well understands this, and she's kind of looking forward even to a brighter future. Sure, she might have illness and insecurities, but judging by some of the songs on this album, there's a lot to celebrate too. And I think she understands that. I think she's very aware of that, which makes Insecure a very satisfying closer. Now, normally I would probably end my review right around here, but if I did that in this case, I'd be ignoring a very huge issue that I have with this album. I think a really big part of trying to create a well-balanced, cohesive album is having the tracks in an order that flow together really nicely, that tell a story. This album, unfortunately, just doesn't do that, or at least not as good as the debut EP. I have so many questions about why this album was organized the way it was. Like, why is the album's sad and lonely intro immediately followed by a track about trying to find a fun relationship? Why is Skinny Legs, which is debatably the album's darkest song, sandwiched between two of the most upbeat and poppy songs on the album? Why is it that two of the three interlude tracks fall right next to Panic Attacks? It just really doesn't make that much much sense. I mean, when I look at the songs in this album individually, I generally really like the content, that much is very clear. But the ordering is just so wacky that it makes the album really hard to enjoy as a cohesive story from start to finish. It kind of feels like I picked up a really well-written book, but somewhere along the lines there was a manufacturer's error where the first chapter is in the right spot and the last chapter is in the right spot, but then everything else is just completely out of order. I just feel like everything would have needed to fall in line a lot cleaner for me to really love this album. I also, though, don't think it's fair for me to completely discredit Elohim just because of a poor track order. Beside that, this album is of much better quality than Elohim's debut, and it is certainly more unique, so I'm probably feeling like a strong 7.5 to a light 8 for this particular album. If you guys want to check out this album for yourselves, which I would strongly suggest you do, as always, I have the Spotify link down in the description below. And for the first time ever, because of my issues with this album's track order, I'm going to have another link in the description where you guys can go check out the Elohim Critics Cut edition, which is kind of what I'm calling it. It's going to be just how I would have organized the album's track list if I would have had the executive decision to do so, which I obviously don't, but it's going to be the playlist that I go back to whenever I decide to re-listen to this album, because just the way that it is hard for me to kind of process in my brain, so I'm going to go back and listen to it in the kind of way that I pictured it kind of would have fallen, I suppose. I'm really tired and I should probably go to bed. Like and subscribe to me. Like and subscribe me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below if you have listened to this album, or if you haven't, make sure to go listen to it for yourself, because Elohim is a very talented artist and one who deserves your support. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I'll catch you later. Peace.